And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
I've been accused, and rightfully so, of beating a dead horse. Well, let me set the record straight. After the horse has been buried, decomposing in the ground, I will come back, exhume the body, and beat the hell out of it all over again. Okay, I want everyone. I want to be perfectly clear about that. Well, folks, thank you for joining Liberty Talk Radio on this Labor Day weekend. I have a heck of a problem with the way we treat news events. To me, we should have news du jour. Now, for those of you who do not speak French, as I do not speak French, and don't go to restaurants that have the soup du jour, let me explain what that means. If you go to a restaurant and you see, the item soup du jour, that means soup of the day. One day it's chicken noodle, the next day it may be, lentil soup or whatever. But it's the soup of the day. And what we have developed is a news du jour or event du jour mentality. In other words, once something comes up, an event comes up, we will announce it, present it, possibly even discuss it, but very, very few times we do that. And next week, it doesn't exist anymore. Why? Oh, that was last week's news.
Soundbite news.
That was last week. Why are you mentioning that? Joe, don't you mentioned some of that last week. I get that. Why did you repeat yourself? Well, because you have to come. We never come to a conclusion here in the United States. All we do is we throw something out and let me pick on really this is my favorite subject, living wage. I want to debate the best. I want to debate every PhD who is pro-living wage, and I want to eat their lunch. And I will. And they can't beat me, right? But, they mention the living wage event, the debate, mention that people are taking to the street. And right now there are something like 40, something like that, states in which there are people on the street, clamoring for a living wage. And that's all they say. They say it's a living wage. These people can't raise their families on $7.25 an hour, and they're protesting against companies who are making billions, tens of billions of dollars a year. All right, now on to our real news, and that's all we get. Now, we may get, on occasion, a follow-up saying now, oh, they're protesting now in Seattle, Washington, and you get the same story over again. No one discusses the issue. If they discuss the issue, they are deathly afraid to get to the core issue. I saw a movie this weekend, and I just loved it. It was the movie that was directed and produced by Woody Allen. Now, Woody Allen has a real strange life, and I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna get into that. But as far as his movies are concerned, what I love about all of his movies is he takes what people are normally think on their conscious and subconscious minds, and he puts it on film, and he makes you feel very uncomfortable. You go, yeah, I've done that, and you never want to admit to yourself that you actually think that way, and he walks through it.
Like he'll see a beautiful painting on a wall and fall in love with it. And
absolutely.
I think some joke like that.
Yeah, we all do bizarre things, and he just lays it all out. Well, this movie, if you haven't seen Blue Jasmine, I do suggest, I don't get any money for saying that, by the way, but you really should see this movie. The acting is phenomenal. It has Alec Baldwin, and don't ask me all the other actors. They are all fantastic. In fact, Alec Baldwin has a very minor part, and he's a major player. He's the major person to play, and he has a minor part, which is very strange. But it's what they do is they bring everything to fruition, and it's very, very uncomfortable. Now, my son Paul is the one that said, Dad, you have to go see this movie because he's a real Woody Allen fan, and so am I. Now, I mention that not to waste time, but to say that our news should be more like Woody Allen movies. They should get down to what really hurts. What's really what is uncomfortable about a living wage? What is uncomfortable about approaching a man in his middle age or his 30s and 40s that has 3 children at home, has a sign, I need $15 an hour at least. I need more. I cannot support my family. All we do is say, well, Mr. Smith here cannot support his family on $7.25 an hour, and he's protesting. Back to you, Chet. And that's it. That's it. It's finished. The news is over. There's no more to it. Don't get any closer, because then you'll get like the Woody Allen films. You'll get very, very uncomfortable. Well, you see, folks, I want to repeat myself again. As I repeat myself, and let me tell you, when I get home, I catch it. They say, you said that again. I heard you say that. Why do you keep on repeating that? All right, I'm going to catch heck when I get home. You see, I am not from this planet. For those of you who have not listened to this program before, I am not from the planet Earth. I am from the planet Zork. And proof, I have proof this time. If you go to my website, I am wearing my official Planet Zork t-shirt. It says Zorkites Rule. All right? Is that what it says? Rock, I'm sorry. Didn't even know.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet. The whole world is under attack. Can it survive?
I tell you play with clowns, you work with clowns. This is exactly what you get, I tell you. That was great. That was great. Great try.
Well, you are from another planet, so.
No, folks, believe it or not, that was not planned. They didn't know I was going to say this. Anyway, but I'm from the planet Zork. Now, let me explain what that means. It's very important that you understand this, because you may be, in fact, a resident of the planet Zork or a descendant of someone from the planet Zork, most likely. You see, the planet Zork, everyone thinks critically. Everyone. There's no exception. Everyone thinks critically, sort of like Woody Allen. And everyone speaks logically. Now, this is what happens. If you are detected speaking illogically, they put you on the space module. They fire it up. It gets off the planet immediately, because if you speak illogically, it's a lazy way of thinking, and it's contagious, and they're afraid of that. They've been there before. You go off the planet onto another planet. One of the favorite destinations for illogical and non-critical thinkers is the planet Earth. Now, let me put this another way, folks. I hate to make you feel badly about this, but you see, the planet Earth is sort of like the insane asylum for planet Zork. Okay? You understand that? And this is the way, and I can prove that. I can prove that as they say, I can sell this for $5 all day long. I can prove this all day long. Just listen to the news, and you will find one item, one event in which they discuss it to the end in any logical fashion. Everything is a soundbite. On Planet Zork, now how did I get here? I screwed up. And believe me, I've been fighting to get back. Believe me, and I want to go back, because this place is driving me nuts. Now, understanding that, we need to think more critically, but we don't do that in the news. And actually, when you listen to the Woody Allen movies, as crazy as they may be, demented, psychologically bizarre, they really make sense. I mean, they walk through insane thinking about people and their events and their desires and all that. Now, I don't expect us to be Woody Allen movies. Don't get me wrong, but that's used as a metaphor, please. And so what we should do is we should get very uncomfortable when we discuss items with people. Now, when a person is there, Mr. Smith is on the line, and he is making $7.25 an hour, and this is what I saw this weekend, by the way. They had this news gal, and of course the news gals, and all right, I'm a male chauvinist pig, all right? I admit it, number one. All right? Of course, she's drop dead gorgeous. She's like a model. They're all models, long blonde hair, I don't know if they have any brains, but boy, they look good, And she goes up to Mr. No, this is the God's honest truth. This is what happened. I don't know. It wasn't a local station. It was a station in Virginia, I think, or something like that. And she says, well, she asked the guy, oh, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? What do you mean he's doing? He's playing Parcheesi. What do you mean? What is he doing there? What a dumb question. Anyway, he says, well, I'm protesting, because, and this is what the guy said. He said, I have 3 children at home, and he said, we are finding it very difficult to make ends meet at $7.25 an hour. And she says, okay, thank you very much, Mr. Whatever. So, well, and then she said, well, back to you.
That's normal.
I said, well, wait a minute. Wait, please, stop the film, everything. Back. I want to see the real backup. Say everyone walk backwards. I want to see that and go, if someone told me that they had a family, a wife, and I don't know if he had a wife, but he had 3 children, that we knew, because that's what he admitted to. He makes $7 an hour, and he's having difficulty making ends meet? Where's the logic in that? You cannot make ends meet. You can barely make ends meet for 1 week on the month's pay. You think I know people who live at home with their parents making $7.25 an hour and really don't live. They have an old junker of a car, they have an old, just an old Pinto, from 19 whatever, everything like that. They have no means of, they don't have a penny left over. So when a person says that, when they say, wait a minute, Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, you have 3 kids, and you took a job at $7.25 an hour and expected that to feed your family? How did you arrive at that conclusion? I mean, I want some Woody Allen here. We don't ask that question. Here's some of the questions I would have asked, I would have said, all right, could you explain how you intended to feed your family at $7.25 an hour? And by the way, Mr. Smith, if in fact you are doing so, but you're cutting it very, very close, we're going to write a book. I'm going to co-author with you. We're going to make a fortune. If you can raise a family on $7 an hour, $7.25 an hour, with 3 kids, and make it, man, we've got it made. We got a New York Times bestseller.
Minimum wage for dummies.
Minimum wage. That's exactly. Thank you. Oh, by the way, that's what is your name?
Derek.
Derek. So Derek Murphy's with us today, and he's been with us before. He sort of helps out around here. I don't like the kid, but they got to keep him off the street. But anyway, but really, that's excellent, Derek. Minimum wage for dummies, and guy would make a fortune. But no, he just says that the guy, and you got to think to yourself, what was this guy doing before? He didn't get this job when he was in high school. Maybe he didn't graduate high school. And so it leaves all these questions open. But what they do leave you with, they leave all these questions. They leave you with this sympathy, like, the fast food companies made over $200 billion. They should give that to the poor employees.
Yeah, but they make more than that. They make more than $7.25. That was a plant.
But it's immaterial. It is absolutely immaterial. My point being is that they should at least follow through with it instead of saying, back to you, Chet, and that's the end of that. The thing is, I want to know how he does it now. Jesus, with 3 times the salary, with no kids, my wife and I find it tough. And we have no mortgage on the house. Come on.
So you think those people need to be interviewed more?
Oh, yeah.
But don't drop the ball. Now.
Little fight.
Yeah. What we got? I wrote down some questions. Why? I would ask, why did you take the job at $7.25 an hour when you knew darn well you couldn't possibly raise your family with it? In other words, where were your brains when you took this job? How long have you been working here? What kind of job experience do you have? I would have asked all these questions. And what makes the wage unfair? Well, the guy's saying, well, it's not a livable wage. Well, then what the person believes in, and this, of course, the dummy asking the question would never tie this in, because this requires that you went to a school that actually taught something and made you think instead of memorize crap. And we're going to have Linda Murphy on our program, talking about Common Core in the second hour. And we're going to quick key on that, and I can't wait for that conversation. But we have by the way, we have a 2-hour program today. We're going off at 9 o'clock. So sit down and get comfortable and don't go away from the radio. All right.
I feel more relaxed already.
Gee, with that tone, I think I dare not get up.
I forgot what I was going to say now. See, you threw me way off. I hate when you do that. You know that? I just hate when you do that.
Well, we got time.
Yeah, we got time. We got till 9 o'clock for me to remember, right? You know, they've got to ask the questions about how they do what they do and why they did what they did. And they don't ask it. And I don't understand. And we're just left with this sympathy. In other words, what in fact they are saying, this is what they're saying, folks. They are saying to each, from each according to their needs, from each according to their ability, from each according to their ability, to each according to their needs. Now, guess what, folks? That's Marxism. 1875, Karl Marx made that the cornerstone of communism. From each according to their ability, to each according to their needs. In other words, you don't earn what you earn. You just work and you provide for everyone else who has less than you. That, folks, is the race to the bottom. In fact, our early settlers, and I want to say, was that the Pilgrims? Someone's going to help me out. My history's on. It was either I think it was the Pilgrims that came here and adopted that philosophy. They died. They literally starved and died to death. And when they only had a few more people left and they realized they were not going to make it, right? They said, okay, everyone, you're on your own, basically free capital, free enterprise capitalism, right? Was initiated, and the place actually thrived. It absolutely thrived. And yet, do we learn that?
I was going to say they didn't teach that in my school.
No, they didn't teach that. They don't never teach. They never know. But however, if you read the real history books, they'll talk about how many of these, instead of the Pilgrims coming over here, and I'm not sure if it's the Pilgrims, it's one of those groups. But let's say it's the Pilgrims just for the sake of discussion, because I don't want to get into semantics now. But all we teach is they came here and we had, meals with the Indians and then had drink and everything was fine. And, they love the shore and, it's all comic book history. And we don't learn anything from that. So really what we say, well, Mr. Jones, then you would prefer a communist state. And Mr. Smith, you would prefer a communist state. From each according to its ability, to each according to their needs. Is that correct? And have them answer the question. But no, we don't do that. We don't ask any of the Woody Allen questions. Right? And then they say, well, if you don't, do you accept why did you accept the job at $7.25 an hour? Did anyone force you to take this job? And when you apply for this job and the person next to you applying for it was a snotty kid who hasn't graduated high school, did you have a sneaking suspicion that maybe you were applying for the wrong job? Stay with us. We're going to come back right after this break. Welcome back to Liberty Talk Radio here on 1170 KFAQ. We are beating to death the living wage issue. And welcome back to the University of Logic, or better known as Cristiano's Conservatory, correcting convoluted conversation. And that's what we have with the living wage issue. We have convoluted conversation. People walk around, and someone just mentioned, in fact, my agent just mentioned, he said, what we have is agenda journalism here. What we do is we just show one side of the issue, and we train the mind to think a certain way, and then we have sympathy, and then we have laws, and then we have more of this and more of that, and then we have more people politically tied to a particular agenda, and whatever, and people become less free. It's very true. It's a long way around. We don't think of it that way. We usually think of losing your freedom when tanks come to shore and bombs are thrown. No, you don't lose your freedom that way. You lose it through knowledge or lack of knowledge or the way the concepts, right? I was in a store, coffee shop, and they had a magazine called The Job Dig. I've never looked at this magazine, so the other day I picked it up because I was talking about the minimum wage job. I said, well, let me see what jobs are available. And so it's called Job Dig. This is the August 19th, the August 26th edition. And it's basically job openings, in the area. And so I looked at it and I said, let's see what they have here. Nursing. Well, the person would apply because they don't qualify for that. There's a school, there's here something for going back to college. Well, they can't do that. Let's see. There should be something more than that. These are mostly come back to school time. Customer support specialist. Here's a job for a customer support specialist, AT&T. I would bet dollars to donuts that these people could not qualify for that job. And here, we are searching for outside residential sales reps. Don't think these people would qualify for that job. Let's see. Here are the small little ads here. Moneyline personal banker full-time. Nope, don't think they... I'm just saying, just thinking off the top of my head whether or not these people who are applying for these jobs would qualify. Here's one for a teller, banking manager and a personnel banker. I don't think so. Customer support and specialist and customer service representative. Maybe, but I doubt it. Customer service representative. There's another one. Boy, a lot of customer service representatives. Here's one they qualify. They need plasma donors. There you go. We got one job for you. Right? Well, here's a general labor, customer service, and skilled labor in manufacturing. Well, maybe the general labor. That's got to be a tough job. And you know what? I'll bet dollars to donuts. It's going to pay $7.25 an hour. Here's a heavy equipment mechanic. Now those guys make big bucks. I learned with the guy I was working with one time. I asked him, I said, how much? $75 an hour.
Wow.
He was making a hell of a lot more than me, and I owned the business. I owned the business. I'm serious. Here's these are, I read that already. Mechanical assemblers, but here material handlers. You need experience there. Truck drivers. Manual and CNC machinist, they don't qualify for that. They have that job.
Special training.
Yeah, that's special training. Order pullers, forklift operators. You need to be in a license for that. Material handler, mechanical assembler, inventory and quality assurance reps. And no, you need schooling for that. All right.
And experience.
You got general labor here, and they may qualify for that, but that's going to be a tough job, probably making 75 cents an hour. And several warehousing jobs available. That was Job Dig. There's another one here called Now Hiring. That's what it's called. And let's see what these people have to offer. Security guard must be an experienced CLEAT, C-L-E-E-T, certified armed officer. Don't qualify there. Here's one for
We're
immediate
not doing
opening.
too good here.
No, Securitas. They're looking for high school diploma or GED and willing to participate in a GED. Will train to Arkansas state standards. That is an Arkansas job. They may be qualified for that, but I'll bet if they're going to train them to get a GED, they're going to get paid $7.25 an hour. Here they have assembly technician. Don't qualify for that. A paint specialist wouldn't qualify for that. Masking specialist. Don't even know what that is, but I assume you need some experience. Quality assurance person, industrial engineer. And see, you look through these and you say, well, these people most likely would not qualify for any of these jobs. They have no skills. The people who are online saying, I want $15 an hour. That's who.
It's the same thing on Craigslist, too.
Yeah, same thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here. Now hiring production operators, general laborer, Gates machine operators, industrial quality control, forklift drivers. I mean, these all require a certain skill and sometimes licensing. And I went through this and I said, there are very, very few jobs here that they would be qualified doing. Here's diesel truck technician. If you know anybody who works on the big diesel trucks, these guys make, even the tech assistants make a fortune, but you better know what you're doing. They don't take people who don't know what they're doing.
How much of the population, Joe, do you think really makes 725 or 750.
Oh, it's now less than 5%. See, it's a very small percent of the population.
What are they even talking about?
The point being is that these jobs were never meant for family. They were meant for kids out of high school,
Starting out,
first jobs, showing up,
experience,
learning, and whatever. But the thing is, the job situation has gotten so bad. And some of these people work for General Motors, putting on the left front wheel, making $37.50 an hour plus benefits. And with benefits, it was like over $50 an hour. They figured they were going to have that job forever. They're going to be making basically $55, $60 an hour, putting the left wheel on a car, thinking that. I mean, you can imagine that. Thinking, oh, geez, never a competition. We have a strong union. Bingo, they closed the plant down. And now, knowing that, the only job they can find is over at the fast food place. I mean, and when they do this stuff, when people, I met a gal 2 days ago. Just 2 days ago, I was in the coffee shop, and she stopped me. She said, "Sir," she said, she was looking for a certain area. She was looking for 129th East Avenue and 41st, and wanted to know if there were any jobs in that area. I said, "Well, I didn't. There are a few, but it's not an industrial area that I know of that have a lot of jobs." And I asked her why.
It's mostly fast food in that area.
Yeah. She said, well, no, she said she was looking for a fast food job. I said, well, you may find one there. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm just curious, why that area? She said, well, I'm trying to find I just came in from North Dakota. And she said, she told me I came from a dysfunctional family. I had to leave. She said, I left with my boyfriend, or my boyfriend was here in Tulsa somehow, and she's living with her boyfriend, but she needs to have a permanent address so she can get a job in a fast food franchise place, because that's the only place that would. I said, why fast food? She says, it's the only place that will take me, now listen to this, without a high school education. So here people with families are competing against others who have no high school education and are begging for the job and are willing to work for $7.25 an hour. And then, oh yeah, how much does that come to? That's $15,000 a year. What does it come to a month? Tell me how many. It's
4.3 times this.
Yeah. Just how much does it come to a month?
We're waiting for the calculation.
Yeah, here we are, the calculation. I got to have brains here, you know. All Harvard Business School people.
Yeah, right.
How much? Come on, guys.
290 times 4.3.
Oh my God, they can't divide.
Joe.
I'm hiring someone who knows how to divide.
It's an iPhone. What do you expect?
They can't use an iPhone. What a bunch of clowns! Never again.
Yeah.
$1,247.
$1,200 a month. Okay.
Finally got it. My
God. And then here's the coup d'état. So I said, well, we talked about it a little bit, and she said eventually she wanted to be a veterinarian tech, and she wanted to go to school. I said, that's wonderful. That's a great idea. My wife knows about that, and she would give you the blessing on that. She said, but I'm pregnant. And then when she said that, it was like,
wow.
Like it blew all the air out of sales. I said, well, now you're living with your boyfriend, you have no apartment, you have no job, you're pregnant.
What were you
God,
thinking?
Once again, it's about choices. It's those choices.
Yeah, you just. She says, and her excuse was this. Well, she says, I just found out. It's like, oh, that's okay. You just
but the act doesn't
I
work.
felt sorry for her. She was a nice looking girl. Yeah, nice girl. She was a very nice girl. And she, was very talkative. She probably a good sales representative, something like that. But now she blew it. Anyway, but.
At least for the time being.
Yeah. Let's get off that subject.
That was depressing.
Hey, she needs to get out of the boyfriend deal.
Yeah,
I was relaxing.
Or the fiancé deal. Can you understand? These people on the fiancé for 9 years.
I have received no email. No email at all on the living wage issue. I thought I would get flooded. None. Zero. Zip. So, call me 855-866-1170 or send me email comments.
Issue, Joe.
And I'm not getting no arguments whatsoever. Absolutely not. Yeah. All right, let me change the subject. I want to change the subject. I want to change it to the Syrian situation, but I want to clarify it. So I want everyone to listen carefully, and you people at home, all right, concentrate now. Okay? You people driving and listening, concentrate on the road. Don't concentrate on what I'm saying. But you people home listening to this, I want you to concentrate. Now, here's a situation in the Middle East. Iran is backing Assad, right? No question about that. The Gulf states, other than Iran, are against Assad. Assad is against the Muslim Brotherhood, but the Muslim Brotherhood and Obama are against General Sisi of Egypt. But the Gulf states are pro-Sisi, which means they are against the Muslim Brotherhood. Iran is pro-Hamas, but Hamas is backing the Muslim Brotherhood. Obama is backing the Muslim Brotherhood, yet Hamas is against the United States. The Gulf states are pro-U.S., so to speak. You know, we say pro because we buy them off. Pro-U.S., but Turkey is with the Gulf states against Assad, yet Turkey is pro-Muslim Brotherhood against General Sisi, and General Sisi is being attacked by the Gulf states. By the way, folks, welcome to the Middle East, and have a nice day.
Wow.
Now, what this is remnants of, folks, World War I. My wife, honey, was that 3 years ago? We went to Kansas City, Kansas City 3 years ago. We went to Kansas City and we visited the World War I Museum. We didn't intend to, but someone suggested we go. And it was really worth the trip. It was a fabulous museum. They actually had artifacts and they had scenes reenacted, the whole bit. And in one place, they had the alliances prior to World War I. You know, with the Hungarian Empire and Germany and France and Romania, all the stuff. And it read exactly this way. And they mentioned that one reason why World War I was such a difficult war is people really couldn't unravel the alliances to find out which side they should be on. And sometimes they had an alliance with one country and wound up fighting. They said it was the biggest cluster screw up. And to this day, there are historians debate all this stuff. They cannot get it straightened up to this day. And when I read this, it reminded me of the precepts to World War I, all the alliances. And what does Gerald Slente said, from the Trends Research Institute? He said, World War III is here, and it's going to start in the Middle East. And when you read something like this, you can understand why. He talks about trends, he doesn't predict anything. And here is something. This is something that should make us really weary. A person that I admire, is a friend of mine, is Paul Jacobs from the Citizen, I can't think of the name of the organization. Hold on a second. I don't know what, I got brain blocked today. Paul Jacobs writes the Common Sense on every day, and you go to This Is Common Sense and you read it. He's with the Liberty Initiative Fund, but there's another organization. My brain is totally knocked out. Anyway, it makes it immaterial. Yeah. He wrote this. He said, secrecy in diplomacy and intelligence gathering is supposed to protect the nation, but secrecy also protects bad policy, including great crimes that undermine our security. This week, the National Security Archive released onto the website, this is the National Security Archive, the first official admission that agents of the United States government brought down by assassination and violent coup Iran's democratically elected president, Minister Mohammad Mosaddegh, 60 years ago. Guess what? And they put in the Shah of Iran. And now they're admitting it. I mean,
isn't that interesting?
They are admitting, we went in, we assassinated, and we put this person in.
Right.
I mean, do we need any more? I mean, other than we have a confession here.
As long as lies are old, I guess they're okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and the thing, and then people say, well, we put this guy in power, and what he did when he came into power, he killed everyone who was any sort of opposition. We're responsible for the death of all those people, and we've been doing that ever since, and we just cannot admit it to ourselves.
And the government doesn't listen to us. I saw an interesting post on Facebook today. It was the emblem of the NSA, and it was the beautiful emblem like the president's emblem, and it said NSA, and underneath it says, the only department of government that actually listens to us.
You're kidding.
I just started laughing. The only government agency that was really listening to us.
Well, we wonder why Iran
great.
hates us, and all these people running. They're saying, "Oh, we got to go to war."
Oh yeah.
Building up the fear when we started it.
Right. Well, since this is true, I'm going to say if true. Since this is true, how do we say that? Oh no, but we made a mistake just one time, but every other time, we weren't responsible. In other words, we're admitting
It's happening now.
Yeah. If they hate us for a reason, and they don't hate us because of our freedom, and we start these wars, and we're controlling that. Now, let me give you my take on Syria. You don't hear this. Maybe you've heard it. I haven't, and I've read a lot of stuff about Syria. Two reasons why we're concerned about Syria. One is pipelines.
Yeah.
Second is Israel.
Well, sure, yeah.
I mean, but they're saying, the people, this and that. No, pipeline is Israel, and not
Isn't it about one going north and one going south? And yeah.
and not necessarily in that order. In other words,
Yeah.
we're taking orders from our boss, the Israeli, the Israeli lobby. That's who we take our orders from.
Israeli lobby.
Let's face it. And Biden is the spearhead. I mean, he's like
He's a Zionist.
Yeah, he's a Zionist. I mean, and that says nothing about the Jewish people, because you don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist. Mm-hmm. And the Zionists are the ones that convinced England back in '46 to give them, a small part of Palestine, to settle, of which they took the whole stupid thing now almost, right? And the wars have been going on ever since. But do we learn that in history? No.
To learn about the Balfour Declaration.
No. Please, you're confused. I have a headache already. Okay. Balfour. I have a headache.
He knows about it, though.
A book that you should read that's
impressive.
interesting, and I just started reading it some time ago, and I got off track, and I stopped reading it, was called One Palestine Complete. And it's the only book in the very first page. It has a picture of the Middle East with the part that is
I've
now
seen
Israel called Palestine.
I've seen
and
that.
we
Yeah.
never, ever, do you know we never say Palestine territory? We say the occupied territory. We will never, ever say Palestine. We don't say the Zionists are in Palestine. We say the Jews, the Zionists are on occupied territory. And if you ask the man on the street, what is the occupied territory? No concept.
Nobody
First
would
of
know.
all,
it's
No,
all,
not at all.
the
No,
first
no.
of all thing that they show you, and you look at the maps, if you look at the maps on where the Palestinians live, it shrunk over the years. The
Yes.
amount of space they had originally and what they have today, if you look over like 10-year, 15-year intervals, it's shrinking. The Israelis are taking their land as much as they can. They're getting boxed into these little places, and it's only dots on the map now. Whereas when they tell you about it, they bring the old map up and they show it, and it's got all this layer. Here's the occupied.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they show it like it was original, but the truth is, it's not like the original, breakdown.
Yeah, and they never mention that this is Palestine. This is now the part that Great Britain said is now Israel.
Yeah.
Could you imagine someone coming to the United States and say, "Oh, this section of the United States is now, another country"? What would we do? We'd fight. Tanks would be. I mean, we would fight.
Oh, plus they have the second biggest F-16.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
they have
And
nuclear
aside
weapons.
from
so, I
the
mean,
US.
yeah, we give
And
them
the nuclear
yeah,
weapons.
We
Yeah.
give them $3 billion a year.
and they use it
And
real
they-
well, because you ever seen their armament?
Oh,
I
man,
mean, with the money
yeah.
we give them, they do a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, they know how to.
Now, what's interesting is that Obama just made a speech today, and I was driving, I almost crashed because he said things like, he's proposing, he's presenting, the measures that should be taken against Syria to Congress. It's like, before I do anything, I always go to Congress. Well, he got skunked. He can't move on his own because everyone's against it. And now Great Britain said, sorry, we're not doing it.
We're not
We're not participating in this.
Right.
So no one's in agreement. The UN said, sorry, no deal here. So we're
90% of our population, the polls say, are against it.
So then he gets on TV and says, well, I'm doing like I always do, the right thing, and I'm presenting it to Congress to see what they... Well, you punk. First of all, you should always be sending it to Congress, which you never do, And now that because if you do it, you're going to be the bad guy, you're presenting it, you want Congress to be the bad guy.
Called cover.
I mean,
He's just
come on.
CYA.
Oh, I mean, how bad could you get? No spine whatsoever, no honesty whatsoever.
Well, he has no time to think about these things. He's going on vacation too often.
Yeah, and that vacation cost $600 million.
Yeah.
$600 million. Can you imagine? When he goes to Jay Leno, he goes on the Jay Leno show. That cost millions, and he's worried about the budget. Millions of dollars to get to the Jay Leno show. Anytime, this was years ago, I read this somewhere, every time the president opens the door of the White House and leaves, it costs $1 million. Just to leave costs $1 million.
Just in security measures.
Security measures, right.
Sure,
Yeah, it's amazing. And they went through all the steps, all the things that have to be done as soon as he steps foot outside the White House. And
Well, I think
basically, if he was concerned,
we're to put him under house arrest.
and he is, really, the president really is under house arrest, if you
pretty
will, because just by virtue of the fact of the cost of it to leave someplace. And they said that if did he go on this vacation to Africa with the elephants and stuff like that?
Yeah, he
did
did.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did that?
I
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
think you did.
Yeah. They said that they had 24-hour a day surveillance
Yeah.
with jet planes overhead, and a jet plane always had to be overhead. In other words, there had to be zoom, 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 had to be overhead.
They did that in
Isn't that
Florida.
amazing?
They did that in Florida when he went to play golf.
Yeah, just constantly. And you know, all these F-16s, F-14s,
Whatever happened
F-35s.
to what happened to our society where a president could actually leave the White House and go sit on the park bench? They were presidents. I mean, you read the history.
That's
they
right.
did that.
They just sat on the park
yeah,
bench, right?
because
so
they
a lot of
didn't.
people-
You know why? They did what they were supposed to do, and that was absolutely nothing.
Nothing, right? They just protected the rights of the people. So who's going to shoot him? Because
He's a
you
good
want
guy.
Bob, you want to do that? Go, Bob. Good luck, Bob. You know who's going to shoot him? You know who's going to get mad at him? You know. But now they are involved in everything.
No, they call the shot.
Yeah, and they can't. Hey, we only have a few more seconds. Oh, by the way, we're going to be on for a second hour,
Hey, that's
and we're
great.
going to have Linda Murphy. I'm going to introduce her right after our. Well, I guess we have a break with some commercials
She's
and
an
all that
experienced
stuff. Right?
teacher
Yeah,
herself, and
yeah.
she studied.
Yeah,
News, yeah,
folks,
local
I do
news.
want you to stay around because we're going to talk hot and heavy about Common Core, okay?
Yeah.
A subject that's very, very misunderstood, especially, by the way, especially by the teachers, okay?
So
Are
if
we
you know a
ready to go?
teacher, have them call them up and tell
Yeah,
them to
please,
listen in.
855-866-1170. But I'll bet dollars to donuts you will get no teachers calling because they're afraid to discuss it. All right, thank you very much. We'll be back. Thank you for joining on our second hour of Liberty Talk Radio on 1170 KFAQ. By the way, those of you who are interested to know why we have a second hour is because we sort of got quasi-bumped the first hour to accommodate the OSU post-game show. So they gave us an extra hour. We want to thank KFAQ for doing that. You're nice guys, you know, but I'm not paying a dime more. No, our second hour is going. We have a guest with us. Her name is Linda Murphy. She was the Republican candidate for Oklahoma State Superintendent of Schools in 1994, where she received, folks, you won't believe this, 49.5% of the votes statewide. 49.5. Jesus. She was then appointed Secretary of Education by Republican Governor Frank Keaton, but denied confirmation by 12 Democrat members on the Senate Education Committee following an unprecedented two-day hearing. She then served as education advisor in the governor's office and later as Deputy Commissioner of Labor for Workforce Education and Training. If I was her, I would have given up at that point, Linda. I would have, you know. Linda was appointed to the Governor's School to Work Council, the State Job Training Coordinating Council, and the Commission on the Status of Women. She is an educator, certified for 25 years by the Oklahoma Department of Education. She has worked in public and private education, specializing in teaching children and adults with special learning needs. I guess that includes me, right, Linda? All right. Let's see. She served as the Central U.S. representative for the optometric extension. See, that I need some counseling, don't I?
No, you need a dyslexic.
Extension
coach.
Program
Yeah, you
Foundation of the Santa Ana, California, was given an award by Liberty Optical and the State Optometric Association for her work with visually related learning problems. Linda is an education consultant and a certified examiner for the SOI, that's the Structure of the Intellect Learning Abilities Test. Linda, thank you so much for being with us.
Glad to be here.
You made me feel so inferior. I have no quality. You know, when I get introduced, they say, Here's Joe. That's about
Well,
it.
I went through the political ringer first time in '94 and the 2-day hearing, and I heard over and over how unqualified I was. So maybe I'm overdoing it now. But, I wasn't qualified to carry the agenda that they wanted me to carry.
Well, Linda, you're here to discuss Common Core, and I'm going to be a real wise guy saying, now wait a minute, Linda. Our education system needs fixing. We had all these brilliant people in Washington come out with this program that's going to assist all of our children in their learning abilities to become better citizens and all that other good stuff. What seems to be your beef?
Well, what we're really finding with this new program is it is not a state-led initiative, which, first of all, it is promoted as a state-led program. No one in our state voted for it. It was not brought before the public. Only our governor and our state superintendent of schools, actually the previous administration started the process, and our current governor, Governor Fallon, and State Superintendent Janet Barisi have continued the process, which was started prior to them. And the process is Common Core, which is supposedly a set of standards for K through 12 students. But it's really much more than that, and the standards themselves are not academically focused. They are more aligned with job training. They're education and training combined. A lot of academics are left out, and it's a shortened column of information that a student will process through, and they don't even have to get the right answers on some of it, but to know the process. Say, for example, in math, certain processes that they practice in the way that they come to an answer. If they know the answer in their head, they can't just write it down. They have to go through the process and record every step of the process, and that is graded as their actual score.
That's Woody Allen math. It's Woody Allen math. I can see this now. I can. Well, I can just see Woody Allen. Well, I got the process right. I got the. Really, it's the same.
Right. What's wrong?
I can just see his mind. My mind works like that. That's great. Well, I would have done well. And that I would have done well in school probably like that because I was a real doofus in school. When I graduated high school, I never forget. My mother was sitting there, and she was sweating because I was. I was thrown out twice in high school. I wasn't a good boy. And when I got my diploma, I mean, I knew my mother went. I heard her in the crowd going, "Oh God."
Well, I taught special education, and that included children that were brilliant but learned differently, uniquely. Yeah. And so, I'm very familiar with kids that didn't quite fit into the mold of the typical. And what Common Core is trying to make everyone have a commonality at the end of the process of high school. At the end of 12 years, well, K through 12, and if we go back to early childhood, we're going to be looking at, some would like even from birth, as in EduCare here in Tulsa. Our president is pushing for this. He wants early childhood education for every child. So we're looking at the end of the process, all students having an equal ability at the end, instead of equal opportunity to learn everything they can learn individually. The equal outcome means they will all know how to do certain things that are in the system, that are in the Common Core system.
I'm not up on the education system. My young one is 39 years old, and but what I understand is that the Department of Education, by its very charter, was prohibited from developing the curriculum for the states. Am I right, or am I saying this wrong?
That's right. It's against federal law. So it has been brought forth in this round of battles and efforts to force this on our schools across the country through an initiative that Obama devised with a grant competition. So every state applied for a grant if they wanted the federal money that came along with the grant, but it was in a competition that required certain components be put in place, even if you don't get the grant. And so in Oklahoma, our Governor Henry and State Superintendent Garrett did do this process and put us into the Common Core system. It's in our state law right now.
Yeah.
And we did not get the money. We went through the process, we got the law, and we didn't win a competitive grant.
Well, I need something like this because, if I ever, and I never would do this, but I mean, if I ever did, like, accidentally cheated on my wife, I want to have an explanation like you just gave me to give my wife, and she'll go, I don't understand what you're saying, but it must be okay. It's amazing. There is a national, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm real hazy here, there's a National Governors Association that sort of was involved in this,
That's
but
right.
they really don't represent the governor, like the government of the states, but they're like a what do they call
A nonprofit organization.
yeah, nonprofit.
Yes.
So it sounds like the governors are approving this, and it's not really the federal government; it's the state government. Do I have all that wrong or what?
No, you're right. It's the National Governors Association. I attended the meeting for the NGA, National Governors Association, Education Advisors in 1995. So I'm very familiar with that, and that is what Mary Fallon is now the chairman of. Our governor of Oklahoma is now the chairman of the NGA. And the initiative that she brought forth week before last in Chicago is called America Works, and that is the job training component of this system. So Common Core is K through 12, and the job training is going right along with it.
What job are they training for?
Well, whatever job the corporations determine they need filled.
Oh, the corporations
That's the
are
way
calling
it
the
will
shots
be.
here.
Yes.
Oh,
Once
interesting.
again, United Corporation of America.
Yeah, United Corporations
Well,
of America are
yeah.
determining what educational system we have.
Yeah, and then there's another group called I forgot the name.
Achieve.
No, that
Chief
organization.
State School
That's it.
Officers.
That's right,
Uh-huh.
Chief State. And I said, I never heard of that before.
Yes.
I heard of the principal's office because I was there all the time.
Yes, yes.
No, I tell you, I was there because the principal liked me. That's all. I was a good kid, But I never heard of that before. Where do these things come from?
Well, these are organizations that have been around for a long time, but now they're taking really control of policy that's being brought back to our state and being imposed upon our state without our legislature having an approval process. They didn't realize what was really in the wording that they put into place. It's like they don't really know what they're getting until on down the road, and then it turns into something that they wouldn't have even chosen.
Oh,
They
we
wouldn't
have to
voted
vote for it so we know what's in it type thing.
Exactly,
The Nancy Pelosi.
exactly.
The Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, we vote for it, prove it, and then we read it.
Yeah, right.
Like
Well,
Obamacare.
yeah, and of course we're gonna sit down and read 1,700 pages of legal mumbo
And I'm
jumbo that
sure-
we don't understand.
I'm sure this
Yeah.
has as many pages as well.
Well, what is the major? Obviously, it's not being presented as it should, and it's not really coming from the states. The states are not, from what I see, the states are not individualizing or their education. The teachers are not given the same amount of latitude and flexibility to
That's
teach
right.
according to their type of class in
That's
their
right.
area? Is that the
Teachers have
problem?
had freedom to teach academically, academic freedom, that term that we've heard, and could get to the goal with a student through the curriculum they choose, various books, various ways and methods. But with Common Core, it's very structured and it's very rigid. The teacher will be evaluated as well on the way that they produce their lessons, the way that they deliver their
okay.
lessons.
All right. Yeah, everyone's under the gun then. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Linda, hold that thought. Linda, let's take a break. Stay with us. We have with us Linda Murphy. She's the former appointed Secretary of Education, and she is an educator. Linda, thank you so much for being on Liberty Talk Radio here on 1170 KFAQ on a Saturday evening.
Glad to be here.
Well, thank you. It's, especially when you consider this is Labor Day weekend. Boy, we're carving out your weekend very nicely for you. I have, let me give you just my prejudice. And
Sure.
It's a prejudice. The one and only class that I think we do very well, that has been conducted very well in our education system, is kindergarten, and I'll explain why. In kindergarten, we ask kids to be themselves, be creative, make things. In other words, they're not structured. We ask them to use their mind, to be imaginative. And after that kindergarten, they go in the first grade, and all of a sudden, you will be this way. And it seems like all of the imagination, the creativity, thank you, creativity and all that sort of goes out the window in place of structure. It is displaced by structure. Do I have that wrong, or am I exaggerating?
No, I understand what you mean exactly. I taught special education. I had a lot more freedom in the classroom at that time, in those years past, to create my curriculum, allow students to do work at their own pace, and interject their own thoughts and take a little more time. And of course, some teachers have been able to structure their classrooms that way, but there has been a very rigid curriculum and control in certain situations. Unfortunately, we're going to a lot more of that. This is a system with Common Core, which is quantifying or numbering a quantity or measurable performance for students and for teachers, so that the data regarding their performance will be entered into the computer system, along with personal and private information with students. And I presume that's going to be true for teachers as well, because the idea of the central planners, I'll just call them the central planners from the top down, is to make a very efficient and effective system with as much data as possible about the student, about their family, their home, and not only their cognitive or mental functioning abilities, but their affective, their emotions, feelings, behavioral aspects.
Boy, if they did that when I was in school, I would have wound up in a
nut house.
in a
They would have.
some sort of rehabilitation,
There you go.
or camp or something like
Yeah.
that for wayward boys.
Well, I'm very concerned as a teacher who has had this kind of information on students that I've worked with in the past, because they had special needs. But we would never have that information sent or taken outside of the building. It belonged in a locked file, in my desk, in my file drawer. The parents had access. The teacher that was, sworn to secrecy and privacy of information, myself, would have that information that we needed for that child.
Right.
But to send it in a computer system, even out of the building,
For everyone.
is ludicrous.
Yeah, but
it's going to go to too many places, and just
But it's on every student.
on every student.
But what are they going to do with that information? They're going to try to
Well,
modify behavior on everyone?
Exactly. One thing that we have seen out of the Federal Department of Labor or Education this year is a system of behavior modification for improving learning persistence, tenacity, grit, and determination, to measure performance, and to have a biofeedback system where you can tell if they're really trying and when they're trying, and what kind of situations they break down in, to give the feedback to the student, to the teacher, to remediate the student.
Do these people who wrote this cacophony of lunacy, have they ever been in the classroom?
No. We have 2 out of the panel of 20-some people that originally started that were actual educators. They rejected the project and said, we will not endorse this. Sandra Stotsky, who was a doctor of education in Massachusetts, had done the standards for the state of Massachusetts on all subject levels. She was in the English language arts for Common Core. She rejected it. She said, this is not improving academic standards. This is a process that has an agenda, and the people involved that have the authority in these panels producing this, called Achieve is the name of the panel or the organization. They actually copyrighted the Common Core standards through Achieve, which is a non-profit organization. She said they're all with corporations. These are not educators.
What's the agenda?
The agenda is to control education and the economy, to have a centralized system where workers are trained and there's an assurance at the end of 12 years they're going to walk into a job ready to do certain skills, but they will not be a well-rounded, well-educated person.
All right, I'm sorry. I have to break in here because I have limited experience in the classroom. I mean, even when I was a student, I had limited experience. I was a horrible student. I mean, let me think.
I bet you made
was
it fun, though,
horrible.
Joe.
No,
I bet your classroom with you was fun.
You know, the girls were in a different building. You know, guess where my mind was. You know, in the other building. You know, all the time. But I taught project business at one time. This was about 25 years ago. And would you say that the discipline in school is better today or worse today than it was 25 or 30 years ago?
Well, it's worse.
Okay,
overall,
that's what I think.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I hear from most people, right?
Sure.
Now, so this was in a better, more disciplined environment. I got to tell you this story because it's so unbelievable. I was asked to go, I forgot what school it was. A school in East Central part of Tulsa, but I don't remember which one it was. I showed up about 10 minutes early, decided to go to the cafeteria. Sat in the cafeteria, and there's pandemonium. I mean, kids running all over the place, fighting, arguing, doing everything. At the back of the cafeteria where I was sitting, there was a gentleman. I had no idea who he was. First time I'd been in this school. Was a gentleman, and he was speaking. And he was speaking out to this chaos. And I mean chaos. There's not one kid sitting down listening. Chaos. And he's talking. And then the bell rang. Kids got up and fled the room. And I stood there, and I thought it was the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced in my life, you know. And so I'm sitting there, and kids were out of the room. I said, "Excuse me, I'm looking for Mr. So-and-so, the teacher of, the 8th grade, whatever it was." He says, "Oh, that's me." I said, "Oh." I said, "Thank you. I'm Joe Cristiano with Project Business." He said, "I know you are. Yeah, blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Well," I hate to get off on the wrong foot with you. I said, "I really don't." I said, "But I'm confused. Would you help me out with something?" He said, "Sure." I said, and I meant this, the exact words I said. I'll never forget this for the day I die. I said, "Who were you speaking to?" That's the question. I said, "Who were you speaking to?" He said, "The students." I said, "Mr. So-and-so." I said, "Did I miss something?" There was no one listening at all. He said, "I know." And I just stared at him. I felt like an idiot that I said this. And then this you will not believe, and I will never forget this word for word. I said, "Well, geez, am I glad that's not my class?" He said, "No, this is the good one." I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding. Exactly. And I stood there in horror, thinking if that was a good class, what was I going to walk into? Well, and he was right. I walked into that class, and I would say it wasn't 10 minutes into that class. Nothing. I could get nothing across. No. And in the middle, it was in the middle of a sentence, I decided just to turn around and walked out. Didn't say goodbye to students, the teacher, anyone. I just went in the middle of a sentence, didn't finish it, just turned around and walked out. I'm halfway down the hall, and I'm about 20 feet from the outdoor, the outdoor doors. And I hear my name being called out. The entire classroom is in the hall. Now, when I went to school, if you walked into the halls, and didn't have a slip, you were better off dead. I mean, it was such egregious. I mean, if you kill somebody, that's so bad. Walk in the halls, that's really bad, I mean, you wouldn't think. I mean, that's something you never did. Everyone frightened that they were ever in the hall. They wouldn't step in the hall. Anyway, and the whole class was there. And the kids were saying this, "Mr. Cristiano, please come back." And I was shocked why they wanted me back. I said, "You're kidding." And I didn't know what to say. But I was shaking. I was so angry. I was shaking. The one thing that I was afraid of doing is saying something would have wound me up in jail. Like, you said wrong words, and then they would have reported me. The police would have come over and taken me away for whatever,
Would you go back?
And I stood there, and I was shaking. I had my finger up, and I was shaking. I was just shaking like all over. And I said the most, and then words came out of my mouth, and when I realized what I said the most cruel thing in the world. I said, I don't need you. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, I looked at them, and they were in shock, and they stopped, and they were perfectly fine. They were just stood there. They didn't breathe. I turned around and walked out. I got in my car. I said, you know, Joe, you could not have said a more cruel thing to these kids. And I'll never forget that. This is something I will live with all my life.
Maybe it was a wake-up call.
Yeah. But my point is this. Mm-hmm. What you are discussing and my experience. Now, the other classes weren't much better, by the way. Most of them were not much better. I had sex stuff going on in the classrooms. I mean, you name it. It was horrible. What you are saying that they want to achieve in the classes that I went to, and these weren't the bad schools, and my experience with 7th and 8th grade kids ain't ever going to happen. Mm-hmm. Now, am I way off base?
Well, I think a lot of this is totally unrealistic. There's no common sense in so much of it, and once the program starts unfolding in a school, the teachers are usually just livid, and if their administration is pushing it, they have to keep their mouth shut and comply.
Oh, I can't. I tell you, and again, my experience is limited. Now, I did this for years, so I mean, I was in about every school in Tulsa, and very few times would I say that was a good experience. Very, very few times. And what you're saying, yep. Well, hold on, folks. Just hold with us. We have our break. We got our news, right? And we'll be back. We're here with Linda Murphy, the former appointed Secretary of Education. Do not go away. We have a second half of this show. Now, we mean it this time. We want you to call with your questions, 855-866-1170. Thank you for joining Liberty Talk Radio with Joe Cristiano. That's me on 1170 KFAQ. That's 855-866-1170. With us this evening, we have the former appointed Secretary of Education and Oklahoma educator, Linda Murphy. We are discussing Common Core. Linda, is there resistance now against Common Core among the people within the education system, and where is that going? Where do we stand with that?
Yes, there is, Joe. Across the state, we're seeing more and more teachers, especially this fall as school has started, and they're being required to do new processes in their math, their English language arts, and align their curriculum with these new Common Core standards. They're finding out that this is really not a good, strong education system. So there is resistance. There's resistance on the left, the right, and in the middle politically. So we've got Democrats, Republicans, Independents saying this is not good. We're losing local control. We won't be able to make decisions on a local level. So say, for example, now a certain book or curriculum is not really a good thing for children in the classroom, and parents, teachers in a local community want to get rid of it. We can change that. But that is not going to be the case with Common Core. If we stay on this track, we would not have the freedom to do that.
You know, folks, this is so important because this is mind control over our kids. I don't care which way. I know I'm a new radical and all this stuff, but that's exactly what it is. It's, Linda, I attempted to read some of the Common Core instructions and what each segment means. I had no idea what we're talking about. And I suspect, and I'm not being disrespectful to teachers, and let me tell you my position with teachers. Teachers, for the most part, are incredibly hardworking and dedicated, super dedicated people to their students. So when I criticize the education system, I criticize the system and what our teachers were led to believe and learn.
Yes.
Not them themselves as people, but what they think that they know and learn, which is not correct. So I want you to know that. So I'm not attacking teachers. I want to read to you just a part. This is grade 1, by the way. This is not college stuff. This is grade 1. It's at number 1. Students develop strategies for adding and subtracting whole numbers, and based on their prior work with small numbers, they use a variety of models, including discrete objects and length-based models, cubes connected to form lengths, to model, add to, take from, put together, take apart, compare situations, and develop meaning for the operations of addition and subtraction, and to develop strategies to solve arithmetic problems with these operations. Boy, it's a long sentence. You know,
Sounds like a lawyer made
I
that.
think I know what they're saying and all that, but it shows. And some of the other stuff I couldn't understand at all what they were saying. You know, the later grades.
Oh,
But-
there's strategies. Yeah,
Yeah.
first grader.
Yeah, we have a caller on the phone. Let's say we have Kathy on the phone. Kathy, thank you for calling 1170 KFAQ. Your question, please.
Hi, Joe and Linda. Linda, how would this program affect children who are gifted and in gifted classes?
Well, the gifted and talented area of education will be affected along with all the other areas. It is a common core of skills that are related to job training, to industrial needs, and gifted and talented students won't be able to have the freedoms to go individually and study and learn as they have in the past. We've done that in the classroom, differentiated learning for students where you have children on different levels and they can go into other areas of study and research just to give them something stimulating and challenging. But the goal of Common Core is to get everyone through, and at the end of the process, they will all know the basic same things.
That sounds kind of like the old Soviet Union.
Well, we hear this a lot, and in fact, a polytechnical education philosophy out of Berkeley, the National Center for Education and Vocational Education and Training, the NCRVE, National Center for Research and Vocational Education at Berkeley, has a statement in their literature that polytechnical education is based on the Soviet model. So that's a combination of academic and job training together.
I feel so much better now, you know. Don't you, Kathy?
Pardon?
I said I feel so much better now, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
Very encouraged.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have children in school, or are you
No,
an educator?
I don't, but I have great nieces and nephews in school, and two of them are gifted and talented.
That's wonderful.
And it's a little frightening to know that their gifted and talented issues are not going to be addressed, and they're just going to be put in with everyone else. I'm not putting down anyone's kids, but for kids who are so far ahead of their age level, it seems really unfair and a little bit scary to me.
Sure.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, that's the problem, is that we have, there's so much variety. See, I was giftless and talentless, you know. And, you know, and I wouldn't, seriously, I wouldn't fall into that category. You know, I woke up about 40, when I was 45 years old, I finally woke up and said, I got to do something with my life, you know. But, you know, some people don't even do that. You know, let me be honest with you. I mean, I wish I can have all sorts of accolades about myself, but I'm not proud of it. But you do stupid things when you're young, you know. And, you know, you go along thinking everything's going to be fine. Then you realize you got to work for a living. You got to do something. You got to be something yourself. You have to contribute to society and all that. But, you know, when you have the gifted kids and then all of a sudden there's something to a program, it almost seems like it's like, you know, everyone's got to do the same thing. You know, they should have someone speak in German, like, you will do this, you know, type thing. This reminds me of, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Kathy, you know, if you send me an email with a mailing address and a T-shirt size, I'd love to send you a Liberty Talk Radio T-shirt, okay?
Oh, honey, I've already got mine.
Oh, you do? You have one? Oh, okay. I love you for it.
$1.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for calling back. Appreciate it. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, Joe
Okay.
and Linda. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You know, I find that a lot. You know, I ask people, you know, I have my T-shirt, you know, because we give a lot out. Anyway, I want to read another one to you. You mind?
Yes.
No. Yeah. Here's something. Understand the concept of the function and function notation. Now, I know when I was in high school, you know, for a freshman, this would have been clear as day to me. I would have had no problem. Understand that a function from one set called a domain to another set called a range assigns to each element of the domain exactly one element of the range. And if f is the function and x is the element of the domain, then fx denotes the output of f corresponding to the input of x. The graph of f is the graph of the equation y equals fx. Well, why do they write that? It's serious.
And they were getting paid by the hour.
I mean, they should say, shouldn't we go,
that?
duh, so, what's so, I don't even understand. I have no idea what they're talking
What is this
I can't
instructions
imagine a
for?
teacher taking this saying, this is what we're going to learn today,
Yeah,
Is this
it's
what
amazing.
they
Absolutely
give the
amazing.
teacher?
Yeah, I was goofy when I was a kid. I would come out double goofy.
Yeah.
The complexity is really unnecessary. Processes of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are sequential. They are on a continuum. They
The human mind
overlap
figures it
and they
out.
build.
Yeah.
And there's a logic to it that we all know in traditional education. And students to be able to go into any job where they can get the minimum wage that you were talking about earlier need to be able to make change. They need to be able to count, add, subtract, multiply, divide in their head automatically. But the Common Core methods are very complex structures and processes, as some of these that you've read, that they have to demonstrate they can do the process. And in some states, they're being told they don't even have to have the right answer, but they have to be able to do the process correctly. So it's about learning to follow directions. And in fact, in the English language arts area, the reading is now 40% instructional, informational in elementary school. And by the time they get to high school, it's 70% instructional, informational. So that in high school, they'll be reading government documents.
Well, don't take a job as a poet then, because
Learning how
nobody will be
Exactly.
nobody will be reading your stuff.
Learning how to write grants.
I can see McDonald's getting a lot of applications for
Yeah.
employment right now. Yeah, I can see the minimum wage going down because they have so many people applying for jobs that are graduating.
I
this
have a
year.
question, Joe. Linda, what is your opinion of the alternative education system in our state right now?
Well, I think we have a mixed bag as far as how successful it is. There
Yeah.
are some programs that have been done very well, but I've also seen what I would call kind of a dumping ground, just getting
Yes.
kids out of a class that weren't going to graduate, weren't going to pass for various reasons. As a special ed teacher, I have always tried to go to the core of the problem for the student. What is the interference in learning? If they're not learning at a level that is a norm, then there's a reason, and trying to really work with that. So it's always been very heartbreaking to me to see how some alternative ed programs have been run. So I think we've had a lot of problems with those.
Yeah.
With my company, I have an industrial health testing company.
Right, right.
I know I'm a radio talk show host because I love doing this. I was forced into this, and I hate everybody
your
for
head,
it.
that's
But I traveled not all over the country, but the central part of the country, everywhere from Mississippi to Chicago and down Texas. It was amazing. One time we were doing work in Mississippi, in a small town in Mississippi. I'll never forget this. It was a different world. It was amazing. Everything was done differently, slower. The commonality of everything that I knew, didn't apply. Nothing applied, and it was strange. And we had to go to this factory, and everyone in the factory was that way. And I won't go into it, but nothing bad. But it was so different. And when I saw this Common Core, I thought of that town in Mississippi with those kids, the way the employees, at least, the way they spoke, and the couple of kids that I met. And I'm telling you, talking about the opposite of a New Yorker, where New Yorkers, yeah, how you doing, man? What's going on? They're going, hi. Everything was totally different. How do you take something like this, apply it to students in New York City, where I came from, and that same program, the same tempo, in this small town of Mississippi? Different planets would be more like it.
Well, exactly. And one size cannot fit all. That is one of the main problems. Just common sense tells us. In New York, they're up in arms. We've got teachers, school principals, superintendents speaking out in New York. And that's pretty bold, that they're in a system that they're locked into. It can always be undone. In 1994, when I ran for state superintendent of schools, got 49.5% of the vote statewide, we had a process called outcomes-based education, which was being forced in our schools then. We already had the state law. That was overturned. because of the political
Right.
nearness of nearly upsetting the incumbent.
Yeah.
So even though I didn't, quote, win, we won what we needed to win, which was to get that law reversed.
Right.
And we can do that
Right.
with Common Core.
Yeah. Now,
And
now,
are they
yeah.
both the same, just a different name?
Really, they are. At the top, the National Center for Education and the Economy, which is a Carnegie Foundation-backed program. A man
Yeah.
named Mark Tucker was there in 1994. He's there now. It
he's
started
just
in the 80s.
Repackaging it.
Repackaging it. Hillary Clinton was on the board. We're looking at her potentially running for president. Bill Clinton just said last week, a few days ago, that he supports Common Core, and so they're starting to talk about it already.
I'm sure they also own stock in the companies that write the curriculum of the books that go to Common Core.
Right. There are a couple of big major
Publishers. Huh?
software, and they're getting away from the textbooks. We did want to talk about that. It's becoming more and more technology so that it's in software where parents won't necessarily see what a child is learning, where we've been able to preview in the past or at least follow along with what they're learning at school through a textbook and written papers. Much of this, actually, the plan is for it to be via technology. The state superintendent in Oklahoma, Barisi, said that we need to look at an Arizona model called Carpe Diem, which is a charter school, and there are 350 students, 6 teachers. She said that herself in the Norman
Wow.
transcript in 2011. Yes.
Not too good.
Not good.
Not too good. Wow. You know, 45 states, from what I read, 45 states, the District of Columbia, and 4 territories, and the Department of Defense Education Activities have adopted the Common Core standard, and that includes Guam, the America Samoa, U.S. Virgin Islands, Northern Mariana. Where is Northern Mariana? I don't even know where.
What that is.
I don't even know where it is. And but they have it, and Puerto Rico. Well, you can see the cultures. Everything is so diverse. Not even all American. You know, they're outside and they have the same program. I don't say. Here's something. Another point that's interesting. I want you to comment on this. Is that one big reason the public schools are getting lousy report cards? This is said. This is again by Paul Jacob. And he says one big reason is that under the bureaucratically run government monopoly, teachers and administrators have no freedom to try fundamentally different approaches and rewarded by consumers when they get it right. Educators must obey uniform and stifling standards. Do you
Yes,
agree with that?
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, right. Okay. And it says here, public schools are usually the most costly item in the state, and local budgets. Yet, despite tremendous and persistent spending growth in the last half century, the public vastly underestimates the true cost of public education, and then has a listing of which which states provide information on the cost of education. And what they do is, depending on the amount of information they provide, they get a score. New Mexico is number 1. They got a score of 93 out of 100. They get a grade A. And Oklahoma, guess where Oklahoma is? You won't believe this. Oklahoma is 5th from the bottom with a score of 38.5, and it gets an F minus
Wow.
in reporting the cost of education.
Mercy.
Boy, that should scare us
Yeah.
to holy.
That's awful.
No, let's say.
Mercy.
You know what I think the answer to all this is, and I'm going to get really radical here, and everyone will laugh at me, is that I think the answer to most of our problems, including the education, is to have not a nation as we have now, but to have a strict confederation of independent states, with a common agreement with
Localism.
Washington.
It's
Well,
local.
exactly. And many states are asserting states' rights. As Oklahoma, that's our hope in stopping this, really, is that we assert our states' rights and back off the federal control of education and the centralized control of education through these corporations. That's really what we're looking at.
But Common Core right now is adopted and in effect right now, is it not?
Right. We have, through teacher training, there is some language in the teacher professional development bill that was put in place in 2008 for Common Core. The state standards for English, language arts, and math are the ones that we have supposedly adopted. However, even social studies has been changed. And if you look online right now at the State Department of Ed, American history is not taught in high school until after the Civil War. Yes.
That's interesting.
Reconstructionist.
Yeah. Well, we only have a couple of minutes. I have to make this one comment, please. We have with us we're a nation right now that in the cities, I'm not talking suburbs, cities, and including Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Chicago, all over the United States, the graduation rate is 51%. That means only half of the kids are graduating. Those that do graduate are not all stellar students. How is a teacher going to adapt this type of program to students who are not even listening in the first place and not even showing up for class and not graduating?
Aren't motivated
I
or
mean,
inspired.
not motivated. I mean, to me, it's like, I have a car. It's all rusted to death. I'm going to put a paint job on it. It's going to run great. It's going to look great. It's not.
Because humans do not program easily.
Yeah.
They don't. They don't fit into programs easily. They're not going to be able to take kids that are wild and crazy and get them engaged in this.
And this is not going to be interesting curriculum.
No, it's boring.
Especially students learning to read. If they are reading 40% instructional information, that is not interesting.
They're not
That's how children learn to read, is because they're interested in reading.
That's right.
I mean, that's a very important component.
Yeah, and we did that in kindergarten, and then we
Yes.
killed it right after kindergarten. How is this country to lead the world if gifted students are to be molded into Common Core? That's a good question to just ask.
Yeah.
Someone just wrote in.
Wow.
Individuality, freedom, creativity, and well-rounded, well-educated, functioning adults are not going to be produced through this system.
Well, do you think there's an overriding diabolical program
Well,
here?
I think it's diabolical because it's very evil to construct a system that affects a person's life this much, from education through the workforce. And the state longitudinal data system, with the data, a dossier that will follow a student, it's tracking. And it's worded that way in the language.
So even
Student ID numbers.
So even the corporations may be able to tap into that.
Absolutely.
To give you a job or not give you a job.
Right, and maybe watch who's coming up from 8th grade and maybe give them an apprenticeship and not the others. See, this kind of thing is
Kentucky
very
Fried
dangerous.
Chicken doesn't care.
Yeah,
they don't
right,
care. Homeschooling. How does this affect homeschooling?
Homeschoolers will be affected by this if we don't get it stopped, because entrances into college will be changed. They're changing some of the testing now to align with the Common Core methodology.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of state institutions in Oklahoma, state colleges and universities that are state funded. And we could control that as a state. Back to what you said a while ago, states' rights.
All right, we have 1 minute left. Linda, I want to leave you with that. Give us a recap of what we should do or whatever. This 1 minute is yours.
Well, we need to talk to our legislators. We need to talk to our school board members. Find out in your local schools what the teachers are being told to do. Talk among yourselves, your neighbors, and let the legislators know you do not want Common Core in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Stop Common Core.
Okay, Linda, thank you so much for being our guest, especially on Labor Day weekend where we broke it up for you too much. And folks, thank you very much for listening to Liberty Talk Radio this evening. We hope you enjoyed it and got something from it. And you can send me your emails to comments@libertytalkradio.com. Okay, and with that, I'd like you to stay well and stay tuned.